apparently does not work for me because I immediately just start thinking about things I got to do. You pay attention to how you're walking, your gait, I guess you would call it. And I mean, I don't know that I've seen a massive difference in my stress level, but I feel like I'm starting to get into it. Like I'm getting better at it. Look, everybody deserves to feel a little happier, a little less stressful. Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/majority. That's headspace.com/majority. You get a free 1-month trial. You get access to Headspace full library of meditations for every situation, so you can try them all out over the course of a month. See if it works out for you. It's the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/majority today. Headspace.com/majority. Check it out. We had another ad for Quip, but it was for this product that I haven't gotten, but I'm waiting. Quip, I don't even know how to talk about this, but they sent me I use one of those, like, I use flossers.
Okay.
Quip now has it's so embarrassing. I'm talking about this. They have a flosser now there's a refillable. I'll go, eventually they'll have us advertised for it. I'll tell it. It's
wait.
awesome.
What do you mean? Like putting different little floss things so you don't have to keep getting those plastic?
Yeah.
Ooh, can I get on that train, please?
It's so awesome.
AKA, can I have some of what you get?
But they sent me one for the gum, and I haven't tried the gum, so I'm not going to do it. But we will, just a reminder, it's your support. Also, check out the AM Quickie, amquickie.com, amquickie.com. Get your 7 minutes of headline news. Okay, so getting back to some of the stuff that we can anticipate, you always hear a lot of day one stuff, and it's obviously, for the most part, metaphorical, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, half the day, at least, Joe Biden tomorrow is going to be prepping for the inauguration, I would imagine. That is like, get up, you take a shower, you brush your teeth, try and put yourself together a little bit. It's going to start at noon tomorrow. We are going to be covering it, for the most part, we're going to be covering it live. We're also going to be talking to some folks who are hoping to push Joe Biden to the left. There is certainly, and we're going to go through another, a couple of picks. There's certainly some indication that Joe Biden can be pushed. Some of his cabinet picks, good, some not so great. We will talk about those. Some of his executive picks, good, some not so great. And I say this with the understanding that Joe Biden was not my preferred candidate. He was pretty low on the list of my preferred candidates. However, I do think that Joe Biden, in many respects, just tries to get into the center of where the Democratic Party is, and that is a fluid thing. And as those of us who are to the left of the Democratic Party or within the left of the Democratic Party, that fluidity can be fashioned. Here is the AP, just with a brief list of things that he is intending to do on day one. A lot of this stuff, obviously, you can't actually do, but you can sort of basically make commitments to what you're going to do. So, for instance, immediately following the inauguration, he will be signing a declaration that the U.S. is rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. That's good. Yes, signing a declaration that the U.S. is rejoining the World Health Organization. He's going to be issuing ethical standards for his administration and an order prohibiting interference in the operations of the Justice Department from other parts of government. Something that you would think that you would not need to necessarily establish. It should have been established. He will be starting the process to restore 100 public health and environmental rules that the Obama administration created and Donald Trump eliminated or weakened. There is a process, and one of the biggest, there's a couple of major implications about the Democrats taking the Senate, right? One of them, obviously, is that it's going to make it much easier for Joe Biden to get his appointees through. It's going to make it easier for him to get his judicial nominees through. It's going to allow the Democrats to pass things through reconciliation if necessary. Those are bills that specifically deal with the budget. The other is the Congressional Review Act. And this allows the House and the Senate to basically reverse any of Donald Trump's executive actions that were filed within a certain number of working days, which can actually go back to like 6 or 9 months ago in the last term of the Trump administration. And what it does is when Congress reverses those, not only does it reverse those, it creates a higher threshold for Congress in the future for going back to those. So in other words, if Donald Trump says the EPA no longer going to or is going to recalculate the way in which environmental harm is done, where they weigh the economic cost to a company for protecting the pollution to our water as being higher as it might have been before. When Congress reverses that, if a future Congress wants to reinstitute that, it's going to take a 2/3 vote in Congress. So this happened with the Obama administration. Unfortunately, there's a lot of rules that are tough to be reestablished. Now there's an opportunity for the Democrats to do this. And I think that process being started is the administration flagging these things for Congress. There's going to be...
Well, no. I think that's all great stuff, and especially in contrast to what we've experienced over the past 4 years, it's a stark relief. And I'm also super encouraged by the rhetoric that I'm hearing out of someone like Janet Yellen, right, who's saying to Congress that we need to go big on stimulus.
Yep.
That's a huge encouraging sign from the Biden team. Now, that's just one step. The other part is negotiating with the Senate and ensuring that they don't cave, right? And that's a big if with Biden. But you've said this before, and I borrow it now all the time about how Biden just wants to place himself at the center of the universe of where the Democratic Party is at a current point in history. And the work that's been done by progressives over the past 4 years plus, specifically sparked by Bernie Sanders' 2016 run, that's shifted, even if it's not to the degree that we want, but what's possible in the Democratic Party, and thus it's shifted Biden. I don't even think he really fully deserves a ton of credit because he's not ideological in that way, but it does. But, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe he does deserve credit because he could have just been 90s Joe Biden. But back in the 90s, that's where the party was. Right. The party's in a very different space right now. And that's encouraging. That's a reason for optimism. And I know both sides, Republicans equal Democrats, that's simplistic and easy for people to understand. And it's also disempowering. And right now in this current political moment, it's not true. It's not true. It was a lot closer to the truth 4 years ago than it is right now, to be honest, even if Joe Biden is the representative of the Democratic Party.
Well, continuing on with those things, start the process of rejoining the deal, the Iran nuclear deal.
Yep.
Executive action to end travel restrictions on people from a variety of Muslim-majority countries. Executive action to protect from deportation children who came here, people who came here illegally as children by no decision of their own. That is the reinstitution of DACA. We're going to talk a little bit more about immigration in a moment. Executive action to make masks mandatory on federal property. On federal property.
And international travel, that was the other thing?
Well, yes. Donald Trump is ostensibly going to stop the bans on international travel out of a fear of these new strains of COVID. Biden, I imagine, is going to reinstitute them on day one. There will be an ask of everyone to wear masks for 100 days. Steps to extend pandemic-era restrictions on evictions and foreclosures. The education department is going to be asked to, and I imagine will, extend the student loan payments and interest for millions with student loan debt. We will see if Joe Biden, at the very least, has promised to send a bill to Congress to relieve $10,000 worth of student debt. He has the ability, many people argue. In fact, I haven't heard a cogent argument that he doesn't. If they have the ability to put a pause on recouping student loan payments, then you also have the ability of forgiving those loans. In fact, we have many programs where student loans are forgiven in specific instances. All executive action, he has the ability to do that, and hopefully there'll be enough pressure that maybe
although they are
does,
watering
if it doesn't
it down
happen in Congress.
They seem to already be watering it down a little bit.
Oh, without a doubt.
Expectations, but yeah. So that's a huge disappointment in my view in terms of what they're expecting.
We'll get more into this immigration legislation that is expected to go to Congress as part of an offer to pass citizenship for 11 million people in the country who are here without documentation. Legislation to go to Congress to repeal liability protections for gun manufacturers. This is a huge deal. Tightening some other aspects of gun control. There is a longstanding law in this country. There's really only two industries that have any type of liability protection that come from the use of their products if they're being used properly. And that is vaccine makers. Because of public policy, it's impossible to create a vaccine for something, let's say like COVID, where some small percentage of people don't have an allergic reaction. So far, knock on wood, the reactions to the millions of doses of COVID vaccine that has been out there has been relatively mild allergic reactions. There is some report of a batch of Moderna vaccinations in California that they are concerned about I
think they recalled it. I think they officially recalled that 1/10 of the vaccines that were put out there.
But generally speaking, the vaccine as it's produced has provided, very little reaction. Now, it's conceivable that 1 out of 1 million people who get it may have some adverse reaction. And so the vaccination companies, because this is part of a public policy measure, their liability is dealt with in a separate court system, vaccine court. The only other industry that has anything even remotely like that is the gun industry, which has a liability shield for their weapons, not if they malfunction. They are subject to the same liability standards there. And we've covered a horrible story about Remington that hid a default in their guns for years. Horrible in the past. But these guns, if they're used properly, kill people on a regular basis. They kill toddlers, they kill neighbors, they kill friends, they kill myriad people. And they are protected from liability. Whereas in the future, if this liability protection was to go away, consumers might have a case to say to gun manufacturers, you have the ability to make this safer. You could put fingerprint IDs on it. We have it on our phones now. You could easily put this on. You could put other trigger protections that would make your product safer and not have it kill people accidentally in the way that it does, or so easily, like a toddler who finds the gun and ends up shooting themselves. There's a reason why we have on medicine bottles kid protection, because we found over time that kids can get into these bottles, and there's an obligation for these drug manufacturers to do that. So that's a big one. And there will be new ones going out after that. He's going to institute the Defense Production Act. It is unclear how that's going to go about, in an effort to ramp up the production of not only the vaccine, but apparently there is, and this is just sort of bizarre that we're talking about stuff like this, in the Pfizer vials of vaccines. Right now, most hospitals or distribution centers are getting 5 doses out of these vials. And that is because of the nature of the syringes that the government has procured to but apparently there are other syringes